Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Spotlight Over the City, and I'm here with the one and only, the big homie of all big homies, Mr. James Prince himself. What's going on, big homie?
Oh, yeah. What's up, DC?
Hey, we love you, man. A lot of people have been worrying me to death about trying to get down here to get involved with the Mr. J Prince himself. So let's get into this interview a little bit. The first thing that I admire about you is your love for God.
Yeah.
And so when I read your book, I heard you say the driving force was mom and a house and land.
Yeah.
And it took off from there.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, I mean, ever since like the age of 8 years old, I vowed as a kid that I would be the one to break the poverty curse where my family was concerned, because as a kid I witnessed a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, a lot of different things that, my family crying, tears, lights being cut off, being kicked out of the home. There's a lot of poverty things that ghetto boys around the world can relate to. And as an 8-year-old, I told my grandmother, I told my auntie, I told my mom, I'm gonna be the one. Don't worry about that, mama. I'm gonna do something about that. So, I put that on my shoulders, and I never looked back, as I started my journey from that day forward, and as I matured, it was something that I was willing to die for, to break that poverty curse where my family was concerned.
And you did just that. God has blessed you tremendously, but the thing that I love the most is you acknowledge it. It's not a lot of people in your position don't acknowledge God. They got too big for God. And so tell me what keeps you grounded in God.
Well, my foundation, was, I wrote about in my book how even when my mother didn't take me to church, she sent me to church on a bus, and it was me sitting there listening to the word of God at the age of 8, 9, 10 years old that ultimately saved my life, in the midst of the jungle. Because, when I think about it in retrospect, it wasn't because of my smarts, it wasn't because of me, The Lord had me in the palm of his hand. He protected me in the midst of my ignorance, and, that was the foundation of everything I built off of.
And when I say you build a foundation, you have built more than a foundation. You have been the blueprint for many people like Master P, like Puffy, like all the music moguls that we see today. And so I salute you as the big homie, not just coming out of the streets, because I was coming out of the street myself. That's why I handed you that book, because you inspired me from a distance, right? I used to watch you, and I knew you was the blueprint. I said, I got to get to this dude. I just want to shake his hand and say, thank you for inspiring me, because you inspired me. So let me ask you, who inspired you? Since you the big Don and you the homie, who do you look at for inspiration?
It began with my mother and my father, the men that played a role in my life into helping to shape and mold me into who I became today. I had a great grandmother that lived to be 114 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, So, well, I don't know if you only give us 120.
That's what the Bible tells. The Bible say 120. You got to go.
I think what it say 3 scores and 10. Which is 70. That's what's kind of promised to us if we live upright. Right. Ain't no many make it to that 120 number that I met or know.
No, that's supposed to be capped though.
Yeah.
Your grandmother made it to 114.
14, man, and she shared a lot of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding with me. So my whole foundation of wisdom and role model began with those people.
So one regret, if you had one regret, and I don't think you were a man of many regrets, but if you just had one regret, one move that you could have made different, what would it have been?
Well, in my book, I wrote about one of my guys that was really close to me, got into a situation one night in a club and got arrested. And I was able to have a conversation with the police and get him out the back of that car and put him in my van to go home. And as he was leaving the parking lot, he drove across the street and got like half his head blew off. You know what I mean? So if there was one thing I could change, You know, as bad as I would hate to say this, but in order for him to live, I would have left him.
He would have been in prison, but he would still be alive and have a chance for freedom.
And just a ride to jail at night.
Yeah, very unfortunate, but you can't save everybody. Sometimes God has a different plan. But I just want to say, like I say, your spiritual balance is what made me become balanced and made me leave the streets alone, because I was locked and loaded and I was around. That's how I know a lot of people around here, and that's how I established myself. It wasn't the positivity that I established, it was the negative, but I turned it into something watching you as the blueprint. So I want to thank you for inspiring me. And let's see, I have so many questions because I've read your book, and 2 days, I read that book in 2 days. And man, when I read about your sister, I said he has a new angel. So how did you handle that situation so young? Because you were very young, and that's very traumatic, very traumatic.
Yeah. You know, once again, I think a lot of my situations was handled wisely because of my spirituality. You know what I mean? It's one thing about the truth where God is concerned. It don't matter if you're a babe or you're 1,000 years old. That one truth is the same truth, and it'll carry you in the past, the present, and the future. And I was able to stand on that in the midst of a lot of stormy days, hurricanes, and all of that, you know what I mean? And it was sufficient, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I give all credit to God, man.
And that's who deserve it all. So before I get you out of here, I want to say one more thing. If you could talk to the young people today, because they seem to be extremely lost, this generation that I'm watching now, I'm 50, so I haven't seen this before, to be honest with you. What could you say to them, or what would you feel to say to them that would inspire them to do something different? Because they need change.
Yeah, well, you know, first of all, when I look at the generation of the day, I understand that they didn't get this way by following people that wasn't perfect people. You know what I mean? So I understand that, you know, and I put myself in a position of they may have been following some of my past ways, you know what I mean? And I think it's important, you know, when we deal with the youth of the day, to reveal that side of us where we wasn't perfect, you know what I mean? Because when we come at them with the sense of every move that they making is horrible and bad, then we not, you know, being real with them to the extent to share with them, man, I was here. You know what I mean? I wasn't always who I am today. You know what I mean? I was trying to run off the cliff, off the bridge. I was that person, but he is what made me transform. So we come at them, you know, from a place of realness. I know that we get their attention just a little more that way versus, you know what I mean, criticizing and pointing at them all the time. So that's the first thing I would do. And then I would express the importance of, it's one thing to dream, then it's another thing of having a plan to accomplish that dream, because, you know, we all have dreams and then we wake up empty-handed. You know what I mean? We don't want to have them bedroom dreams. We want to have them dreams of establishing a plan, you know what I mean, to accomplish that in which you dream about. And I will go further in explaining them the importance of buying the book, The Art and Science of Respect, so they can read about somebody who figured out how to turn nothing into something. You know what I mean? Because that should be a goal and an inspiration to all, you know, with somebody they can identify with that was in their mind frame of where they at right now, but figured out how to turn nothing into something, figured out how to transition from bondage to freedom. And that's what that's about, you know.
So where can they get this book?
Well, my book is on Amazon, you know, iTunes, Tidal, Apple. Yeah, it ain't hard to find right here in DC right now.
So you guys make sure you go out and get this book, because I've learned so many lessons. It took me 2 days. I read this whole book. And when I tell you it's so many lessons in here, one of the major things I learned is if you are on the other side of the fence right now, you haven't transitioned, have a purpose for what you're doing, or you'll die in the street or go to prison. That's the one thing. And then make sure that you do it for somebody other than yourself. is what this gentleman has taught me. Do it for somebody bigger than you, your family. Have a different purpose, not be selfish. I thank you for your time, big homie. This has been a real pleasure, man. And welcome to DC. And you guys stay tuned for Spotlight over the city, man. That's it and that's all. It's a wrap.
Watch this.